Well, this is a bit of an experiment here. Um, Not really sure whether you hear what I'm saying, whether I'm going out live, but well, let's try this anyway. I'm just fiddling a bit with the um, live broadcast button on the iPad. Do I need this light here? It's a bit. Well, that's just as fine. Okay. Uh, I thought I'm going to show you some of the latest albums that I bought this summer. I just got back home from a little trip up north. Oh, bad connection. I wonder what that will do to the actual broadcast. Well, never mind. I'll keep on talking. Um, so, bad connection, bad connection. Maybe too many are trying to connect tonight. Anyway, just returned back after my visit to the north. And been up to Luleå and, well, had a nice time meeting relatives and friends. And also I found some records shortly before I went there, so I'm going to have a look at those too. So, let's see now. I have no idea whether this is working at all. It says bad connection, dålig anslutning. Anyway, so time to show some records. Well, first of all, we have this little gem here, Little Richard, the fabulous Little Richard on Specialty. And of course, this would be amazing if it was an old original from the time, but it is actually a fairly recent reissue. I think, well, it's so recent, it's from 2016. I'm going to have to check whether, well, okay, now we seem to be back on track again. Okay, this lovely little record here, 180 gram and some really great songs. I mean, Little Richard had a most amazing voice. Most famous tracks on this album, probably Shake Your Hand, that Paul McCartney did quite a good job with, and some years ago, I remember that. And Kansas City, also cover that Beatles made. Well, as I said, this is a universal reissue from 2016, so not that incredibly rare, but very nice to find, and a bit unusual to find this second hand. I mean, somebody bought it, but they obviously didn't like it, so that's a bit odd. Well, another one that I found was Ike and Tina Turner, Feel Good from 1972 on United Artists. This is, as far as I remember, a German pressing. Not sure, might be, but I think it is. Okay, well, at least we have some viewers now, so that means that this probably works. I hope you can hear what I'm saying. I have no idea. Just testing this live feature on my iPad. Yeah, oh, I just put it away. I didn't say anything about it. Well, Ike and Tina Turner, always good, always great. I particularly like... Tack så mycket, då vet jag att det hörs. I particularly like the recordings they made in the early 70s. This is maybe a bit less soul-y, if you know what I mean, than the earlier recordings with the Ike Turner. It's a bit more rock and roll on this one. There's a version of She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, so there's a Beatles connection here too. It's not the first Beatles song that you thought about making a cover of. She came in through the bathroom window. I think their next album would be the big hit Nutbush City Limits from 1973, although not 100% sure there. Okay. Another one that I've been looking for quite some time, Evangeline by Emmylou Harris. Well, this song is mostly famous for, well, you can hear it, her singing it together with a band in The Last Waltz. And I always thought that this album was from around the same time of The Last Waltz, maybe a couple of years earlier. But actually, it is from 1981. I have no idea why she recorded this song so many years later, but maybe she didn't like it, I'm not sure. It is not that country-esque. I mean, Emmylou Harris is a kind of singer that most of all we think about country when we see her and hear her, but this is more of a pop album. Evangeline is probably one of the few tracks that has a bit of a country tint here. Also, we have two Les Paul and Mary Ford covers, or it's done in their style. It's How High the Moon and Mr. Sandman. Okay, I know it was a quartet who made Mr. Sandman, but it's the same arrangement that Les Paul and Mary Ford made in the 1950s. So it's a bit of a mixed affair. I mean, she's a great singer, but when we talk about music styles, it goes in several different directions at the same time. So, okay, another old legend, Fats Domino, Million Sellers by Volume 1 by Fats Domino. This is a British pressing on Liberty. I think the original was on Imperial. This is, I mean, many great songs, many great tunes on this one, but it is not in the best of condition. When I listened to it, it skipped a bit. It wasn't that crackly, but it skipped a bit, so maybe it needs some serious cleaning. Okay, this is a singer that I didn't know anything about, Freddie Weller, Listen to the Young Folks. But I thought it was interesting for one or for several reasons. One of them was the fact that this album contains some really nice, good songs like Sunday Morning Coming Down and Okie from Muskogee, and also a version of Up on Cripple Creek. So going back to the band connection here. And I was really curious to listen to how this more straight country version of Up on Cripple Creek would sound, but it doesn't have this half-time backbeat that the band version has. This is more like a straight country, fast country tune. But it's a great album. It's from 1970. It's on the Columbia label. He kept on making records from the late 60s up until the early 80s. I found out that when I checked him online. I didn't know that much about it, but fairly decent country. Right, over to another reissue. This is the reissue of Buddy Holly's first album. Well, you see, he tries to be the rock star without the glasses here on the front, but we recognize him more as he looks here, like, right. Great album though. This is a reissue from the 70s, 1975, on MCA Chorale. And one really good thing with this reissue, unlike many reissues, they didn't put fake stereo on it, so it's in mono and it has great sound. Great songs, Peggy Sue, Words of Love, are among the more famous ones here. This is probably the best finding that I did up in Luleå. It's with a Swedish prog band called Elda med höns. And I don't know if you can see it, but this white bit here is like a sticker, because the original sleeve was censored because it contained Swedish match design of their matchboxes with 3 stars like this, but instead of Swedish match or whatever it says Elda med höns. And Swedish match didn't like that, so they were forced to change their sleeves. Anyway, very nice prog from Falun. I think this was their only album, and it's one of those that you don't find very often. It's from 1975 on the MNW label. Yeah, this was the best finding in Luleå, because this is probably the rarest of these records that I've shown so far. Okay, that was what I found in Luleå and that I have listened to, because I found some more, but I haven't had the time to listen to them yet. Also found some records at both at flea market and at the record store in Stockholm before I left for Luleå. First I found this legendary old live album, one of the earliest Swedish beat live albums, Hepstars on Stage from 1965. This was a record that was played very often in my home by my mother, because she was a girl who grew up in the 60s and who was a big fan of Hepstars, especially the singer Svenne Hedlund, that you can see there. And so she had this album. She said it was one of the first records she had, and probably the first LP. LPs were that common to have for youngsters back then. Den är bra. Ja, den är faktiskt riktigt bra. Det är en ösig platta. We got a comment here saying it's good, and yeah, it's good. And I grew up with this. I have some sort of later reissue on the FL label from 1970s something, but this is an old original and looks fairly decent. I remember the copy that my mother had was really beat up, but very easy to enjoy anyway, so it was very nice to find this. Brings back some memories from the childhood. Okay, now we have, I have a weakness for soul, especially soul with female singers from the late 60s and early 70s. So when I find something that I think I will like, I usually try to buy it, if it's not too expensive, of course. And I found this one. It's Faith, Hope and Charity, Heavy Love. And I have to say, I didn't know anything about this group. I've been checking them online, and they made several albums and also several changes of members, so I don't think it was like that. One of them was called Faith, one was called Hope, and one was called Charity. That would be probably too good to be true. But this is very nice, pop soul, soft but not too soft, nice horns, nice vocals, nice harmonies, and it's on the Sussex label, a label that I find is quite interesting. Today mostly known because that's where Rodriguez made his records. So I'm going to check for more of their albums, because this was quite good. Yeah, back to the 60s. Reparata and the Delrons, Whenever a Teenager Cries, on the World Artists label. I'm not sure when this is from. This is not an original though, but because there are 10 songs on each side, and no LP back then had that many songs. It's not tip-top condition. At least the sound is not perfect. They were great singers, maybe not as interesting as some other vocal groups though. I guess this is some sort of compilation disc. We have Do Wah Diddy Diddy, Who Do You Love, Remember When, yeah, tracks like that. Nice, but not fantastic if you know what I mean. Alright, okay, let's take a little trip over to Brazil. I'm a great fan of Gal Costa, the Brazilian singer, vocalist, female vocalist. Very brave artist, because she dared to criticize the authorities back then, and well, that was quite brave in Brazil back then. I found one of her. I've been looking for many of her records. I haven't found that many yet. There are several of the early ones that I haven't got yet, but I will sooner or later. This is an album from 1984 called Profana. And apart from the fact that it is a bit 80s in the production, but it's not too much though. Still, we get the nice samba taste and also her great vocals. Maybe too many synthesizers for my taste, but still, it's Gal Costa. Oh yeah. Now over to a band that I've been a fan of for many years, but for some really weird reason, I haven't got hold of a decent copy of their first and probably most famous album. I'm talking about Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66. Well, I got some Brazil 77 albums too, but this was the first one, and it's called Herb Alpert Presents Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66 on the A&M Herb Alpert's label. Swedish music group, Gimmicks. They were really inspired by this group. I heard the Gimmicks first, then I started listening to Sergio Mendes, and I can see where they got many of their ideas and songs, especially from this album. Maskenada, of course, is the most famous one, and that's still probably their biggest hit. And this is a German pressing from Hamburg, in great condition, and yeah, they have made this nice mix of one-note samba and Spanish flea too, that I think is quite fun. And the Joker, I know the Gimmicks made a version of that too. And Day Tripper, another Beatles connection there. And they mix both British American pop with Brazilian pop, and it's not really any. It's not that surprising that it became a big hit. How long have I been talking? I've been talking for 18 minutes now. My goodness me. Well, yeah, I'm going to show you 2 more records. Then it's time to say goodbye. We can't talk longer than 20 minutes. But this is a fairly fun record. It's a Nostalgia Electronica Orchestra from 1975. It's a Brazilian album. You have to love this sleeve with a mad music professor with a cigar by his synthesizer and organs and stuff like that. You get an idea what this is about. I thought that this would be really based on the synthesizer, but it isn't. It is orchestra music with lots of reeds and horns, and the synthesizer plays solo in some of the tunes here, but not all of them. It's a very funky little album, and I have never seen or heard of this before. Yeah. So I don't think they made any more records though, but this was very fun to find and lovely to listen to. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to skip one. Yeah, I'm going to show this one too. Talking about Beatles connection. Here in Sweden, we have a band who played together for many, many years, still play together today, who actually toured with the Beatles back in the early 60s. And this Swedish band was actually considered the bigger attraction. So they had their names with bigger letters on the posters. And I'm talking about the band Trio med Bumba from Stockholm. And of course, the band leader, Jan-Erik Bumba Lindqvist, he's always been so keen to tell the stories about when they toured with Beatles. And yeah, why not? If I had a band who had toured with the Beatles, I would never shut up about it either. But they were a fun little band in their own right. So still are, as I said, 4 members, and 3 of them, they started back in 1957, 60 years ago. And 3 of the members have played the whole time. Just 1 member passed away, and that's a vocalist, Tommy Wehner, who passed away some years ago. But the rest of the 3 are still playing together. And I found their first album from 1966, and this is a bit of a rarity. Well, not super rare, but fairly rare, because this was between their hits. They had a big hit in 1963 with the single on Polydor, Spel Oles gånglåt, and then they had their big breakthrough in the late 60s, around 68, 69, with Man ska leva för varandra. But this is from 1966. Yeah. Den skulle man ha, ja. I've been looking actively for this for many years, but some weeks ago I actually found it, and it's great. I mean, you can't help being happy when you listen to Trio med Bumba. They were a cool group. Actually, I have a personal memory connected to Trio med Bumba. Back in the mid-80s, they were doing some tours when they cooperated with a coffee brand. They had some sort of sponsorship by Cirkelkaffe, a Swedish coffee brand, and they had a concert that was sponsored by Cirkelkaffe in Luleå, and I was around 10 or 11 years old, and my grandparents, my dear grandparents who are not longer with me, they asked me if I wanted to join them. They were going to listen to them, and I thought, well, I didn't know who they were, so okay. Well, then I thought it was, well, all right, I mean. But I remember one thing, that they said that one of the members had their 25th birthday that day, and that cannot have been right, probably around 45th birthday. But it was a nice day. My grandfather won a coffee making machine, I remember that. And yeah, a nice memory. I got a little cassette with some of their songs. But some years ago, I went to their website, and they had this guest book, and so I wrote about this show that they made in Luleå, and to my great surprise, the leader, Bumba himself, he answered me and said, yeah, I remember those shows. They were made for Cirkelkaffe. I had forgot about Cirkelkaffe, but that's right, it was for Cirkelkaffe. And he said, yeah. And it was right that it was his 25th birthday, and it's been keeping on being his 25th birthday every year since then, so that's all right. So, I think that's it for now. Thank you to viewers who have been joining me on this video. I hope I didn't bore you to death. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.